Okay, so I've started to look at the Enduro Engineering radiator brace along with, I have a factory KTM fan to see how the fit works. And the factory, the Enduro Engineering brace, it comes with instructions for fitting it with a Trail Tech fan, which has the thermometer external and all that. So unfortunately, the KTM factory fan won't fit as it was intended right against the radiator, which if you see these two holes here are going to line up basically right there. These things are in the way to mount it underneath as it's intended, and then these come in these two holes here. So my option is to shave out, I'd have to shave a little metal out of the brace there. I'd have to cut this off and shave out a significant chunk of the metal here, and that's kind of going to compromise things. Instead of doing that, I believe I'm going to go with the mount the way that the Trail Tech would do it on these three holes here. On the right hand side, it comes with 3 mount holes. So instead of, so let me take the shroud off for a second. This comes in 2 pieces in the kit. It's just to show you how it would fit right there on these 3 holes. So you just rotate it 45 degrees instead of like, well, it's less than 45, rotate it to these holes here, which is kind of cool because it makes the wire go in toward the bike a little bit better. So I'm going to go for that route, but I think there's some benefit to the shroud because the shroud has a coned opening which kind of can pull the air in, and especially since this is now going to be away from the radiator, it's probably going to be away from the radiator ½ inch versus stock. I'm going to shave these off and reuse the shroud, and the shroud on here to show you. Then I can just use the mount screws that came with the kit, fit through here, and go straight in to the shroud. One downside is with the shroud there's a little recess, and I don't want that to be cracking, so I just found some random spacers I had that are perfect. I just have to shave them down, shorten them to keep the strength there at the shroud. So that's my plan. And I put these little, I happen to have some plastic spacers. These are about like a M4 size hole, and I just super glued in, which is just CA glue. If you got some grip glue laying around, same thing. And that'll allow it to fit flush with more support against the radiator brace. So this is the right hand outside radiator brace, and these 3 holes are for mount. And so I've got these 3 holes. The stock radiator fan's going to go right on there, and I'm going to use the stock plastic coarse threaded screws. Initially I thought, oh, I wonder if that's going to be strong enough, but these things are pretty stout in the plastic, and I figure if they did break I can glue them, then put, the other method is you could put an M4 screw through here with a nut on the end, but I think this screw is beefier actually, so that'll just go in from the back. So attached, this is what it looks like attached. I went from the inside out. So let's get started. Got to take off the seat, got to take off the tank, got to drain about a cup of fluid out so you can take the top hose off, because you got to get behind the radiator. So first thing, while I got the tank off, and before I forget, I'm going to put the relay in. So when you install a fan, you need to install the relay, which is included in the fan kit. And on the 2021, it's right here. And it actually says fan relay on it. So can't go wrong with that. You can pull it out of there, plug it in. And then the plug for the fan is actually down here. It's this plug right here. And that conduit actually says fan on it too. There. Take the little rubber band off here. You can see under there it says fan. Cooling fan. And there's only one way for it to go on, so it's got 4 prongs. Nice. And even has a mount, so you can just pull the rubber that was covering it, and it comes with some rubber to slide back on. To get the rubber to slide on, there's an 8mm screw down there. You need to undo that so you can get to the back of it. Slide her on. Okay, now I'm gonna drain a cup or so of fluid out of the radiator. To do that, you want to take the cap off so the air gets in. The instructions say to take all the fluid out, but I don't see the point, and then you have to bleed the air out if you take all the way off. Your drain screw is right here on your water pump. It's an 8. And I wasn't sure how quickly that was going to run out. There we go. That's actually helpful to have the cap to stop it. I'm just using the cap to control the flow. That probably is enough right there. That's like 2 cups. Okay, after you got enough coolant drained, that gives you the ability to take this hose off. Before you do that, you need to take the shrouds off on both sides. There's 2 bolts, so I'll take off the front guard shrouds on both sides, and then I'll take off this hose. So the radiator hose clamp is a 6. There we go. They're loose, we can get behind there. So next we're going to install the rods onto the inside parts of the braces, which are labeled R1 and L1 for right and left. Those go right here, so I'm going to put those on 16mm button heads. Okay, I got the cross braces on there. Now basically this just slides in between the radiator and the frame on the right hand side like this, and then we can tighten the hose back up. So there's 2 on the inside of the radiator. There's 2 little dimples that fit into these 2 holes. Get the right angle to get in there without popping any hoses off. There we go. And this hose clamp's going to be lined up on the dimples. So this is a bit of a tricky spot right here. I'm going to go to the screw head. So take the hose clamp off. I'm going to flip it over. Okay, we're going to do the same thing on the left hand side. After you put the hose clamp back on the right hand side, then you can take the hose clamp off on the left hand side. On this side I flip that screw around because it gets right in the way of the cross member. I got that hose clamp on there. I'm going to put the radiator fluid back in. Make sure you got a clean funnel. Okay, now we're ready to put the leveler back on. And make sure that there's a little recess for the radiator at the top and the bottom. Then you take part 2, which is R2 for the right and L2 for the left, and you screw, there's a kit supplied 16mm flange screw that goes through the leveler section. and like this direction. And then there'll be two 10mm bolts that attach the two parts. So these bolts are just a little bit longer to take on than the stock bolts to take on the thickness of the bracket. Crank those down. And you do the same thing for the left side. Then here are the 2mm button head screws. These are actually hex drive. And these go into the bracket behind. I really like how these are coming together with just those parts put together on their own. It has added a lot of forward stability, impact stability to it as well. We don't even have the cross member on. So the next step is there's a couple of rubber grommets with some recessed spot form. I love that because it's going to reduce vibration. So you pop those in. Work them through the hole. Some nice little rubber bumpers against the radiator. And then the next thing is to put 16mm M6 here to attach the posts together. Just trying to figure out the clearance here for this. They slide over the levelers right there. So before you crank them down too much, you got to work them a bit. And there are two 8mm button head screws to attach the back two pieces. I'll show you closer here what I'm talking about. Right here, this needs to come behind, and then things fit perfectly flat here where those screws go in there and there. But I kept the shroud. I think there'll be good airflow there. I'm really happy with this. It's really, really stiff. Now that I got the right-hand side done, I'm going to go ahead and route the wire underneath the frame and plug it in right here and get her zip tied in good. So I've just cut the original zip tie because this was bundled in, so it's not kinked up. Put a new zip tie in. So I just finished installing the radiator braces, and things were very, very tight over here. So I had to loosen up some of the bolts. This side wasn't so bad, the left side, but over here, in fact, you can see a stress mark on the plastic right coming through the bottom there. So the fitment isn't perfect.